in your textbook, and it's going to cover body organization. So from this point on, your textbook is going to cover a little bit of everything. Terminology, plus they add a lot of anatomy and physiology and disease states as well. So you guys will be able to recognize those terms. All right, structure, organization. So we have atoms. You guys know what atoms are made out of, right? Electrons, protons, neutrons. So those are what we call subatomic particles. So you don't have to know about that. So atoms come together, they make molecules, right? Those are complex. So you get two atoms together, makes a compound, a molecule. You get super big ones, they come together and then they form cells. So for us, the cell is the smallest living unit for us. So if you got a bunch of cells that work together, they do the same thing, they form tissues. We only have 4 tissue types in our body. I'll cover those shortly. If 2 or more tissue types kind of work together, they form an organ. Like the heart. Heart has an inner layer, a muscle layer, an outer layer, a covering. So those are all different tissues that kind of work together to form the heart. And then you get the organ system. So the heart works with the blood vessels, the lungs to oxygenate. So multiple organs working together, you get your organ system. And then all your organ systems make up the organism, right? The complete you. The cell. Very important structure is the cell membrane. It is made out of fat. So basically it's like a bubble. It's like a fat bubble where you have water on the outside of the cell, water on the inside of the cell. Can water and fat mix? So water on the outside stays outside, water on the inside bounce off that fat layer and stays on the inside. The nucleus, it also has a membrane, and that's where the DNA is. If you need to use information, you got to change it to RNA, right? DNA, RNA. So DNA is in the nucleus, RNA outside the nucleus. And then everything else is the cytoplasm. All the different organs of the cell, we don't call them organs, we call them organelles, right? Organs of the cell. We'll talk about some of those structures. They're just in that cytoplasm. So here's a diagram of a cell. The cell membrane, of course, controls what goes in and out of the cell. And then we also have the nucleus. That's where your DNA is. And then if you need to use those instructions outside of the nucleus, you change it to RNA. And then from RNA instructions, you can make your stuff. So most of the time, it's proteins that you make. So here you got your kind of like your assembly plant here in the endoplasmic reticulum. Right? That's where you make your proteins and fat. And then this is the Golgi apparatus. Kind of acts like a packaging and receiving. So once you get the instructions, you make your product, then you got to ship it out. Mitochondria, that's where we make energy. We burn sugar, and our energy molecule is ATP, adenosine triphosphate. You can have cilia or a long tail like sperm, a flagellum for locomotion. And then a bunch of other structures. So that is our smallest living unit. Tissue, only 4 types. So muscles and nerves, everyone's familiar with, right? Epithelial, what does epi mean? Above. So anything that makes a border, like your skin and your GI tract. So food is never really in you. Food is just inside a long tube. So lining that tube is epithelial tissue. Your skin and all the structures in the skin, like sweat glands, your goosebump muscles, right? The erector pili. Those are all part of the epithelial. So the hardest one and the biggest group is connective. So if it doesn't fit, I like to use process of elimination. If it's not nerves, if it's not muscles, and if it doesn't make a border, skin, or GI tract, then they just group it in connective tissue. So tissues, more than one tissue type, kind of doing the same function. They'll form an organ. So here they have the stomach as an example to help break down food. They have the kidneys, help filter and maintain water-salt balance. And then once the organs work together, you get an organ system. So we'll go through the 13 or so body systems. So we'll do skin, necks, muscles and bones, and then I'll post nervous system and special senses. So that's 8 and 9. So that's chapter 6, chapter 7, chapter 8. And do they have senses? No, chapter 9 are your senses. So that's gonna finish up week 2. Body cavities, major. There are only 2 major body cavities. So if you ever hear that word major, then the first one is dorsal, and the second one is ventral. So the dorsal only contains these 2 things. So the dorsal cavity on the back side, just where your brain is, your brain case, and your vertebral column. That's it. That's the easy one, the dorsal cavity. The other cavity is going to be all of this stuff here. That's the ventral cavity in the front. So the first division is where the diaphragm is. So anything above your breathing muscle is the thoracic cavity. So it's going to be further divided. So that's the upper portion where all your chest is. Your lungs, the space where your lungs are called the pleura. And then here where your heart is, the center, it's called the mediastinum. So that's where your heart, your esophagus, your bronchals are. Below the diaphragm, so this is actual physical barrier, you have the abdominopelvic. However, there isn't a real dividing thing here. It's just this is inside the hip. So if you're inside the hip bone, then you're the pelvic cavity. Everything else, abdominal cavity. So if you see major, it's just dorsal or ventral. Dorsal cavity, there's only the brain case and the spine case. Everything else, ventral cavity. Directional terms. So when you see an image or you need to refer to parts of the body, you want to assume, well, any image, you're going to assume that the patient or the image is in anatomical position. So everybody stand up, get in anatomical position. So let's see, stand erect, facing forward, limbs at the side with the palms forward. So you're going to assume everyone is in that position. Not bad. All right, go ahead and sit down. A little bit of blood moving for you guys. Supine, because you are on your spine, right? That's the easy one. Prone, you're on your stomach. You're lying face down. And if you're in the military, this is a shooting position, right? Shooting in the prone position. Planes of the body, real quick review from week 1, our first week. So if I cut the body and I make tops and bottoms, what plane is that? Very good, transverse. If I make front and back, what am I? It's in the question. That's the frontal plane. And then if you make a left and right portion, that's going to be sagittal. If it's equal left to right, then that is mid-sagittal. So this one, is a special one. If you hear the word equal, left and right portions, it has to be mid-sagittal. But you can be off the middle for a sagittal plane. Frontal plane cuts the body in a front portion and a back portion, aka the coronal plane. Because when you get your coordination, they put a crown on you, and they'll divide you in front halves and back halves. Tops and bottoms, transverse. Towards the head, superior. Towards the feet, inferior. So this could be cranial, this can also be caudal. Front of the body, anterior, aka ventral. Back of the body, posterior, aka dorsal. Proximal and distal only refers to the appendages, arms, and legs. So what is closer to the main line? If you're closer to the main line, then you're proximal. The shoulder is closer. It's more proximal than the wrist. The wrist is more distal, further away from the main line of the body. Medial and lateral. Medial is toward the middle, lateral is towards the outside. So your vatus lateralis is right here, your outer thigh muscle. Regions of the body. When you hear the word quadrant, how many portions do you think of? 4. Very good. So always list right or left first, then list up or lower. Right? So always refer right or left first. Regions. If I say regions, how many are there? 9. So this is to describe the abdominal pelvic area. So it's not the thoracic. We're not going to use it to describe and locate things in the chest. All right, which quadrant is your gallbladder in? So here's your gallbladder, right behind the liver. Where's your spleen? Right off your stomach. Where's your pancreas? Do I have one? Yeah, you have one. It's right behind the stomach, right here. Poop goes up on this side, right? Poop goes over, and then poop goes down. What comes up must come down. Not too bad. Where's your liver? Most of it is right here. Most of it's in the right upper quadrant. All right, let's go to the regions. So chondro means cartilage. So where your rib cage is right here, this is all cartilage. So hypochondriatic means right below the cartilage. So you have one on the left, one on the right. In the center, you have your umbilical cord, so your umbilicus region or your umbilical region. Epi is above, so epigastric above. Hypo is below, hypogastric below. Lower back is lumbar, so you have a right lumbar, left lumbar. And then where your hip pointers are, right about there. So they named that portion of the bone for the region, iliac region. AKA inguinal, but that only refers to male. Only males have an inguinal canal. All right, let's see. Where's your appendix? Which region is it in? Your appendix? Where do you have appendicitis? Where does it hurt? What? The left side? Here's my worm. Here's my worm right here. There's your appendix. It's on the right side. So you have excruciating abdominal pain right here on the right side. Might be appendicitis. What region now is the kidneys in? They're right here. So they're in the lumbar region. They're a little bit lower. A little bit higher than most people. All right, quick review. What does MAS stand for? Breast. Very good. How about Arthur? Cyst. Cystitis. Cholecyst. Bladder, right? So you have to say urinary bladder or gallbladder for cysts. Phlegm. Vein, right? Phlebotomy, cut into a vein. Thorax is your chest. Easy. Heat pat, not your kidneys. Liver. Think of hepatitis. Kidneys are ren and nephro. Luke, I am your father. He's pale, right? Darth Vader. Pale. All right. Desis. What is desis? Binding or fixation of a joint. We have cutting, the action of cutting into a vein. So ends with the Y is the action of. So a couple of you guys got that wrong on the quiz. If it's an instrument, it ends in E. If it's the action or process of, ends in Y. So that's the action of cutting into a vein. Tumor of the liver, hepatoma. A specialist in the study of the heart. A condition of pain. No, a condition of the, it's just a condition of, there's no pain. So it's just a condition of the stomach. This is an instrument to measure, heat or temperature. Go on to next chapter, skin and body membranes.